Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cooking from Quarantine. Today we're going to be doing another little baking challenge. As you may know, if you've watched some of these before, I do not fancy myself a baker at all, but there are a few things that I know how to bake. I know how to make awesome chocolate chip cookies, so look around for that video when you get a chance if you're looking to satisfy your sweet tooth while we're all squirreled away from COVID. But the other thing I know how to bake is an apple spice cake, specifically an apple upside down spice cake. The upside down is really just for like the flair of it, but I love apple in baking. I actually prefer like fruit desserts to chocolate desserts. And I love spice cake and I love fall flavors, and so this is kind of a great little recipe to have under your belt. And since it's me who's making it, it's an easy bake because I can't do complicated bakes because it's just not in my wheelhouse. I cook, I don't bake. There are some overlapping skills, but they're not the same. So let's start with what we need today. I am going to be using my 9x13 Le Creuset casserole dish in order to make this cake. If you want to use a round baking dish, it would probably be like an 8x8, like obviously it's round. It would probably be an 8-inch pan, and so you would need the same amount of ingredients, but they might come together a little differently, and you'll see what I mean by that. But I'm using my 9x13 ceramic baking dish, and because I don't have a round one. You're going to need 3 apples, one of which you're going to be shredding up beforehand. I put this just through my regular grater. And then I cut up another 2, and these are Granny Smith apples. You can use the apples you like. I love baking with Granny Smith apples. They're not particularly porous, and so they really hold up. They look like an apple when you're done with them. So I took another 2 of those and cut it up into slices around this side. What I did was I peeled all of the apples. I split them in quarters. I then cut the core out, and I split each quarter into like 5 or 6 slices. So what did I do to the apple if I turned a quarter into sixths? I don't know because I didn't get that far in 3rd grade math. But for any of you keeping track at home and again doing like some kind of Talmudic numbers game, that's what we did. We quartered an apple and then we sixthed each quarter. I'm not even going to pretend to try to do that math. So in addition to the apples, which are easily the most important part of this recipe, we have vegetable oil, a lot of brown sugar, packed brown sugar, dark brown. If you have brown sugar in your house and you like messed up and left it kind of open and now it's just a brick of brown sugar hanging out in your pantry, what you can do is take the brick, put it into a bowl, take a cup of water, and take both the bowl of brown sugar and your little cup of water, throw them into the microwave for a minute, and every minute look and see kind of how your sugar's doing and start breaking it up a little. It won't cure it like for good, but it'll make it loose enough that you can use it to bake with. So it's a little trick from me to you. We have 4 eggs. We have 1 stick of butter. We have baking soda and baking powder. They are different. They do different things. We have vanilla extract, kosher salt, all-purpose flour. Then we have our little spice mix. Did I say a stick of butter? I'll say it again, a stick of butter, it's important. We have nutmeg, we love a nutmeg. I have ground allspice. I happen to only have whole cloves, not ground cloves. If you've got ground cloves in the house, throw them in. Ground ginger, which becomes like important as you get better at baking and cooking. I use ginger like more than I did when I was in my 20s, and I was cooking a lot in my 20s, so like it's one of those things that kind of like a fine wine. Ginger ages with you. I don't know. And cinnamon is super important to this recipe. And with our accoutrement, we also have 2 different bowls, one for wet ingredients, one for dry ingredients. I don't know why it's important to keep them separate, but like people who bake know it's important to keep them separate. People who bake also know that it's important to do things in a correct order while you're baking. So this is one of those things we have to kind of pay attention to. You will need a slice, whatever these are called, a peeler, to peel all of your apples, because you don't want apple peels in this mess. And trust me, like, I'd love for that to be a step that we skip. It's not. Peel the apples. Measuring spoons, measuring cups, my knife, and you know, COVID-19, because that's what this apple spice cake is brought to you by. It's been brought to you by the coronavirus, where heroes are in our midst and everyone's going fucking stir crazy, and it's delightful. So come on down to Cooking from Quarantine, where we eat our feelings and, you know, also kind of online shop our feelings. One more thing that we're going to need, since this is an upside down cake, we're building it from the top to the bottom, right? So the top of the cake is what goes in first, which means when it's time for us to eat our cake, we're going to be flipping it out of this baking dish, which is sounds really difficult, is only like minorly difficult, but you're going to want something that you can flip it out onto. And so I'm using a cooling rack, but like any plate that is, or baking sheet that's the size of your baking dish will do. And it's a cool little trick, and you know, you'll impress everyone with it. We have our oven preheating to 350, and we have a little saucepan, because today, ladies and gentlemen, we are making something in the neighborhood of caramel. It's not a caramel, but it's close enough. It's our approximation of caramel. And so we need a little saucepan. So I will meet you over by the stove, where we're going to make our caramel concoction. Try saying that 69 times fast. And yeah, let's get to baking. Let's bake it up. See you soon. Okay, babies, we are starting our sort of caramel. We're going to put a kind of low flame on underneath our saucepan, and we're going to use for 6 tablespoons of butter, which is not quite an entire stick. We're going to take the rest of the stick, which is 2 tablespoons, and grease our baking dish with it while this is cooking, or any time before this cooks. You have to grease your baking dish. No excuses. Play like a champion. Grease your goddamn baking dish, because this is an upside down cake, and we're gonna wind up, you know, like destroying lives if we get this part wrong. So probably the most important step of all of this is please grease your baking dish. Just grease it. Just make it greasy. Okay, we're putting 1 cup of brown sugar in with the butter. We're putting, this is nutmeg, I grabbed the wrong thing. I'm supposed to be using cinnamon. 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. 1 kind of large pinch of kosher salt. That'll do. And 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And vanilla extract is something that we in the quarantine kitchen measure not with a spoon, but with our whole hearts. Okay, and away we go. So now we're going to stir until everything becomes melted and actually becomes kind of liquidy. And this happens pretty quickly, so again, while we wait for that to cook, Let's make sure it's on the burner correctly. We are going to grease our baking dish. Brown sugar! Make my apples taste good. Alright, this is how we grease our baking dish. Just, you know, clean hands. Clean hands are cook's best friend. I don't know about bakers. Bakers are probably dirty. They like it dirty. It's not true. Bakers are very fastidious people. Okay, so yeah, I don't know any bakers that aren't also total and complete control freaks. There's something to that. There's something to that. So this is like two tablespoons of butter that we are greasing up this dish to holy hell with. Get the corners especially, but the big deal is that the bottom of the dish is well coated, because we're going to be, it's what's going to help turn out our cake, and we like our cakes turned the fuck out. So, okay, let's clean our paws. And keep stirring. Okay, so this is starting to look really good and really brown and delicious. See how nicely it's all mixed together and it's nice and thick still? That's what we're looking for. Okay, and just once it's kind of nice and combined, get it a little warmer. Nice and thickened and combined. We're going to lower the heat and pour the whole thing right into the bottom of our baking dish. So the hardest part of the recipe is now done. How do you like them apples? Get it? So hilarious up in the quarantine. Okay, so we're going to make sure, see how well buttered this is? It's not even sticking. We're going to make sure the entire bottom of our baking sheet is coated with butter. And I will meet you back over at the counter to finish assembling our cake. Okay, so we have our caramel at the bottom of our baking dish. And now we're going to start assembling our apple slices in a way that is somewhat aesthetically pleasing. And like, don't be a hero. You're doing enough just by baking for the people that you love. So they should be like fucking appreciative, yo. But like, you're doing it anyway, so put in a little effort. And just make it look pretty. In a round baking dish, this would look really good because you can make like kind of a rose sort of production out of your apple slices. I'm using a square dish. Whoop, lost a guy to the cause. I'm using a square dish, so I can't do that, but like, I feel like what I lack in aesthetics, I make up for in flavor and enthusiasm. So how about them apples? Okay, so let's finish putting these bad boys into our dish. Kind of just arranging them in a way that feels lovely. Use this time to reflect on your quarantine experience. Are you being productive, like the sociopaths that you know, or are you being lazy like the normal people that you know and watching, you know, every season of RuPaul's Drag Race that ever existed and rediscovering your love for Jinx Monsoon and all those special things that quarantine has brought into our lives? Okay, this is pretty apple-licious, I think. And like, I guess we don't have to use all of the slices, but I really like apple cake, so we're gonna do it. We're doing it up. Let's just, you know what, maybe it's wrong, but it's wrong from the heart. Okay. So now that we have what is to become the top of our cake assembled, we actually need the spice cake part of our cake. So first we're going to do our dry ingredients. Oh, where's my whisk? Nobody beats the whisk. Got it. Okay. We need 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. This is a 1/2 cup measure. I guess I left my full cup over there, and I'm kind of tethered to a microphone right now, so that's the 1/2 cup. Now we need 4 more, and make it as level as you possibly can, too, because this is baking. We're supposed to be, you know, precise. That's scoop number 3. We're doing 5 scoops total. 4. 5. That's all of our flour. Now we need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. 2 teaspoons. Okay, 2 teaspoons of baking powder. That's 1. That's 2. Don't confuse your baking soda and baking powder. Like, kind of reread the recipe 1,000 times. Okay, that's 2 scoops of baking powder, and by scoops I mean teaspoons because we're trying to be precise. 1 teaspoon of baking soda. One of these is a leavener. I never know which. Okay, 1 of baking soda. We need salt, which is way over there, and I'm tethered to a microphone. Let's see if I can make this happen without... Oh. Nailed it. Okay. It's fine. This is cooking from quarantine, you guys. This is not a professional cooking show. I'm not sure if you could tell that by the everything. Okay, so a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. That's one of these little guys. Let's get it going. 1/2 teaspoon of salt that I'm taking like right out of my hands and into here. It's fine. We have clean hands. We all have clean hands. This is quarantine. All we're doing is washing our freaking hands. Okay. 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon, which I also left over here. Okay, here's the 1/2 teaspoon. Then the 1 teaspoon. I love spice cake. It's so flavorful and autumnal and just makes you happy. It's just homey and delicious and fragrant. 1 teaspoon, 1 teaspoon of ground ginger. Our teaspoon doesn't fit in here, so we'll measure elsewhere. Ground ginger, that smells freaking fantastic. 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. We love a nutmeg. Just love it. Okay, 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, and then 1/2 teaspoon of, I'm using ground allspice. If you have clove, use clove. If you want to be like kind of extra about it and use both, like, I don't know, I know baking's supposed to be precise, but like, it's end of days, so do what makes your heart happy. Okay, and that is all for our dry ingredients. And so we're going to whisk all of that together. Why a whisk? Why not? Just kind of getting everything nice and combined so that there's no like hot spots of like only nutmeg or like worse, only salt. Okay, all of that has been put together. Then we need our wet ingredients. So our one shredded apple, which has turned a little brown because it oxidized. I was straining it over a little bowl just because I didn't want the extra water in this. I don't know if that was correct or not, but like, we'll see. We'll learn together. So that was our one shredded apple. We need, ooh, we're losing our cinnamon. And everything else for that matter. We need 1 cup of, well, I really should have done the eggs before putting in the apples, because if we get one bad egg, I'm now about to ruin all my apples. So do as I say, not as I do. But here's our 4 eggs, just egging it up. I always crack my eggs on the counter next to my bowl, not on my bowl, so that if there's any egg shrapnel, it doesn't find its way in. Let's grab our whisk. Break up the eggs a little. I believe that this bowl that I grabbed is too small for the job that I'm asking it to do, but since we're about to transfer all of this to the larger bowl, we're going to pretend that it's not happening. Just like we're doing with quarantine. We're pretending it's not happening. But we all know. We all know it is happening. Okay, we need 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Okay, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, which, like, again, being kind of approximate about because we love vanilla extract. Shredded apple. Okay, we're going to mix this up. We haven't added our sugar yet, frankly, because I'm not sure that I have room in here to add our brown sugar, but we will need 1 3/4 cups, so almost 2 cups. 1 cup and 3/4 of our brown sugar. This is a delightful cake. And part of that is because of the heroism of our brown sugar. That's 1, and now we need 3/4 cup, so that's going to be another half. So these are the kind of fractions I can do. Another half plus 1/4. This bad boy in here. All right. That's all of our wet ingredients. We're going to kind of combine this as well as we can, given that I chose the wrong bowl to put it all in. Actually, we did not add our vegetable oil, so we're going to be adding that next as well. Kind of a key ingredient that I almost just left out entirely. How much vegetable oil? We need 1 cup of vegetable or canola oil. Either one is fine. It's just a neutral flavored oil, and it adds really nice moistness to the cake, along with the shredded apple. If you wanted to use 1/2 cup of applesauce in here, you can add it with no problems. If you wanted to use a tablespoon of molasses, you could add it with no problems, and it would taste like really rad and really good. I happen to not have that in the house, although I have some arriving soon because I'm working on a barbecue project. Stay tuned. So this is not mixing like as well as I would desire because I chose the wrong bowl. I told you I'm not a baker, so this is not stuff that I can just eyeball. So now we're going to add the wet ingredients to the dry ingredients. And like I said, in baking, you follow what they tell you to do. This is, this recipe comes from a bunch of different recipes I've read. There is no one that I can point to and be like, this guy was the real VIP, or MVP, or whatever it is that the kids say. There's no one recipe that I could point to and say, I'm taking this from. It's a mix of probably 5 different recipes that I read. Once you kind of learn how to read a recipe, you can learn how to improvise. And with baking, that's not really the case. But once you see enough similarities between ingredients and amounts of ingredients, most importantly, as you're cooking or as you're compiling the recipe, you kind of get the gist of like, you know, okay, we're using roughly 1 cup of whatever once all is said and done. And, you know, you understand like what jobs all of these different baked goodies have. Like, eggs are to bind things together, and oils for moisture, and all of these baking soda, baking powder products like make things fluffy in a way I don't understand. And okay, so let me grab my rubber spatula that I can't seem to live without. We don't want to overmix this batter. You never want to overmix any batter, actually, because when you mix flour, it gets angry and the gluten develops, and that's how you get dense, crappy baking, basically. So here we go. So we're just going to kind of fold this to make sure that it's completely combined, which it is. It looks like spice cake batter now, which is delightful. Get this out of the way so you can see. Okay, so now what we do is we take our baking sheet, baking dish, whatever you want to call it. I wonder if there's like regionalisms for who calls things what. Okay. Pour all of our batter right over the apple and caramel mixture. This smells so rad, by the way. You can really smell the allspice, the ginger for sure. Even the smell of the apple, the shredded apple, is kind of getting happy in here too. Don't waste any of the batter because you want full coverage over the apples. Come on now. Here we go. There we go. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Okay. All the batter out of the pool. Come on, everybody. Here we go. Holy shit, is that good. We love us some cinnamon in here, don't we? Okay, so we're going to make sure that our cake is nice and kind of spread out, making sure that we cover all of our apples. No little strange pieces anywhere. Like, why is cake batter so delightful? Doing it again, I don't care. Because you know what? It's my house and I'm grown. So now, we're going to take our cake, pop it into the oven, which has been preheating at 350. We're going to put it in for 40 minutes or until a toothpick comes out clean, and then I'll show you how to flip it over once we're done. So I'll meet you back in 40 minutes. Well, it's been 40 minutes and our cake is golden brown out of the oven. We put a toothpick into the middle of it, came out clean, so it is done. So what we're going to do is, within roughly 5 minutes of taking it out of our oven, we're going to place our cooling rack or baking sheet or whatever you have on top of it. Grab both sides of the baking dish and flip it. Then I like to kind of pachi the back of it. Let's see what happens. And that, friends, except for this one apple that got stuck. Come on, we leave no man behind. There we go. That is our apple spice upside down cake. Gorgeous caramel all over the top. Delicious, soft, really tender Granny Smith apples. Smells terrific, and since we flipped it over, all of the caramel that was at the bottom of our dish is now seeping into the rest of the cake, getting it all yummy and coated and just really fucking good. So now you see why it was so important that we butter our baking dish. So this cake is unbelievable with coffee. It would be unbelievable served warm with a scoop of vanilla ice cream on top of it. I like it just a little piece in the morning because, I can justify that, like, it's basically breakfast. It has apples in it. And don't put this in the refrigerator. Leave it out on the counter in a Tupperware, and it will stay moist and delicious and spicy and fantastic. So here, I'll show you how nicely we slice. Oh, yeah. Oh, that steam coming out. That is one good looking spice cake. So thanks again for joining us this episode of Cooking from Quarantine. Bake a cake, let me know how it turns out. See you soon. Bye.